to subscribe and let's take a look.
This hit so hard. Sometimes I feel like my whole life is a story that sounds completely unbelievable, but is also entirely true. However, I have a great one for this. I'm going to preface my ghost story by saying that I grew up in a cult called the Children of God. It's a fairly famous cult. Lots of people have done documentaries about it. It started in the 70s in California, and it was just awful. My parents were some of the leaders of this cult, which is truly a story for another time. However, because of that, I was born in the Philippines, I grew up in Japan and Europe and Africa, and I've seen some pretty wild things. However, there's one thing that stayed with me forever. And that is when I was about 13 years old, I think I just turned 13, my parents moved to a huge manor house in England. The cult had taken up residence. There was about 120 people living there, which can, kind of give you an idea of the scope of the place. It had a big pond/lake on the property, but it was huge. It was like a forest and just endless grounds, it seemed, especially to me as a child. There was also a caretaker who seemed ancient to me, but was probably only like 50 years old at the time that this all happened. And he had told us not to go to the pond lake thing, but I guess we ignored him, and I don't know if he ever really told us the reason. However, because of the madness that was my life and how I grew up, I had a lot of nightmares. In fact, real lucid nightmares, kind of lucid dreaming, where when I was a child, I could hardly distinguish reality from nightmare, to be honest. And by the time we got to this house, my nightmares were really bad. I would hear a woman screaming all the time in my dreams. I would sometimes see a woman in my dreams walking through the halls holding a candle. She would have wet hair and she would be screaming. Sometimes I was the woman screaming. Sometimes she was walking beside me. It was very terrifying. It would even happen to me when I was awake sometimes. And of course I told everybody, but no one believed me. The general consensus was that I had a demon and I needed desperate prayer, which was of course super helpful. Anyway, about 2 months after living in this place, my girlfriend and I were down in the basement getting wood because the whole house was heated by fireplaces. So we had to chop wood and we were bringing the wood up. And I think we were just hiding down there. I don't know. We had stayed a little longer than we should have. And as we were down there, it was a terrifying basement, lots of old paintings, and there was a 700-year-old staircase down there. It was just crazy stuff. Anyway, we're talking, and just out of the blue, out of nowhere, the basement just starts filling up with water, freezing cold water to about mid-calf. And we start to be able to see our breath. Also, I can hear that same screaming that's coming from my dreams. In fact, it was so vivid and clear that I thought, oh, I must be dreaming. That's why the basement is filling with water. Like, I'm lucid dreaming. That's what's happening. This isn't real. But then I looked over at my girlfriend and she also heard the screams, which made us both start screaming, and we both just ran out of there and got out of there because it was so terrifying. Oh, also I could taste the water in my mouth. It tasted like mold and bog water and like old biscuits. And I remember talking to her too, and she could taste it as well. Anyway, we ran and we got out of there, and it speaks to the horror of our lives that we just kind of forgot about that whole incident and carried on living to the best of our ability. Anyway, a couple months later, or maybe half a year later, we were all down by the pond lake thing that we weren't supposed to go by, and we were skipping rocks and stuff, and I remember looking into the water, and first there was nothing, and then I started to see a woman underneath the water, and she had her eyes closed. She was clearly deceased. Her face was quite swollen and white, waterlogged. She was folding her hands across her chest. And as I stared at her, she opened her eyes and looked directly at me. And of course, because it was terrifying, I opened my mouth to scream, and something grabbed the front of my shirt and actually pulled me into the water. And I was flailing, and the water was filling my mouth and nose, and it tasted, of course, like the basement water. And I'm not sure who I was with. I think I was there with some of my younger brothers. I have 9 brothers and sisters, so it could have been anyone. And my friend who was down in the basement with me, she was there as well. They grabbed me. They managed to pull me out of the water. I coughed and I spluttered. And, no one believed me. I told everyone what happened, and no one believed me except for my friend who was, had already experienced the random basement flooding. Anyway, I carried on living my life. We moved away from the house. We moved all over. And yeah. About 15 years later, I've escaped from the cult at this point. I'm living my own life, and I'm working with a different charity. And I somehow find myself back at this manor with this charity that's using this manor house for something completely different now. And the caretaker, who was on the grounds when I was a little girl, is still there. And he's like, oh, hi, I remember you. And I was like, oh, I remember you too. Like, I used to live here when I was a little girl. And he says, I know you were one of the haunted. And I thought, what? That wasn't a dream? Like, I guess I had put it in the dream drawer of my mind or something and just thought that was too crazy to be real. But he told me, actually, his grandfather and his grandfather's grandfather, and they had been caretakers on this property for hundreds of years. And in his grandfather's lifetime, the last royal woman who owned that manor, her husband had died in a war, and she received the missive informing her of his death at night, where after she read it, she had a psychotic break and ended up wandering through the house in her nightgown, screaming and crying and wailing until she finally went and unalived herself in the pond lake thing. And he told me, I've always thought about you over the years. My grandfather told me she chooses different women to haunt. And I saw that you were haunted, and I wonder if you're okay. And I thought, oh my God, this is like a movie. Like, this is the craziest thing ever. And I thought, I'm medium okay, but oh, I can't believe you believe me. I said, no one's ever believed me. And he's like, oh, I believe you.
I was on orientation. I'm a new grad in the ICU. I am now off orientation, but this happened while I was on orientation. Anyway, so we have this guy. He's a 40 to 60-year-old man. So like kind of young, has kids, married, whatever. Very, very sick. I had him for truly like the whole time that I was pretty much on orientation. And he, really sick, intubated, CRRT. I learned so much from him, which I will forever be grateful for. Truly learned so much. So thank you for that. Nearing the end of his stay, he all of a sudden turned this huge left corner, and I was like, oh my gosh, did I heal him? Woohoo! Got him extubated, got him off CRT. I got to hear his voice, got him sitting up on the edge of the bed. Like, it was, I think, one of the best days of my whole life. So that was earlier in the week, and had a couple days off. I was feeling so good. And I come back to work, and it was a night shift. And, I'm like, I don't know, excited to see what new patient I was going to get, what else I was going to learn. And they say, hey, Bailey, and my preceptor, y'all got to get out on the floor. You have Jason back. And I was like, what? Because again, I'm on orientation. So like, I should be getting like, I was like, he's fixed. Like, what do we, I mean, like fixed for the ICU, but I was like, what do we mean? Like, why am I getting back? And they're like, oh, we're actually coding him. What? So we run down there, and sure enough, we're coding him. He's back on CRT, back to being intubated, and I am just devastated. Oh my God, was I devastated. So we walk in, and we just start working. It wasn't even, I guess it was like right at 7 p.m. We didn't get report, because again, I'd had this patient for weeks. And so I knew, I was like, but what happened? And it turns out it happened. It doesn't matter. Anyway, some other things happen. And we go in at 7 p.m. I don't walk out of that room until 3 a.m. Like 3 a.m. It was crazy. Blood, sweat, and tears. And 3 a.m. is whenever we came out. We're just like, there is nothing more. There is nothing more that we can do. And I was broken. Okay, so come out. 7:32 a.m. and Jason passes, and it was devastating. And and the ICU can just be like tough, and losing anybody is tough. This one has stick with me and will stick with me forever. And I promise I'm getting to the ghost story. I promise. Okay, so he passes, and I just want to stay to do postmortem care, because for me that's such like it gives me closure. I can get them all cleaned up and make sure that they're like as comfortable as possible. Like, it's just the last little bit that like I can do, and it helps me. Okay, but I can't, because it was so sudden, and so we were giving family time to like come and blah blah blah. Okay, and I was coming back that night, so I couldn't just like stay. Like, I have to come back. I have to go to bed. I have to like be ready to go for the next day, which is so challenging. Okay, so that happens, and I am so not okay. But I have to be okay, because it's the ICU, and I'm new and blah, 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 blah. Okay. So months goes by from that moment. And I mean, from that time on, I mean, it was weekly. It was turning into like an every other day situation, whether I was working or not. I was having panic attacks. I was having nightmares. I was physically so unwell. One particular night, I'm coming in for my shift. I'm off orientation. I'm on my own. I've been practicing on my own for a couple months at this point, and I just feel terrible. I'm still having panic attacks. Before this particular shift, I'm having a panic attack in the car in the parking lot of the hospital. And I was just sitting there and I was like, I'm not strong enough. I can't do this. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I was kidding myself. Major imposter syndrome, but panic attack nonetheless. Shaking, crying, hysterical. And I thought, okay, just don't clock in and go quit. Like if you really can't handle it, go quit. Walk up to the floor. I'm like, no, I've breathed, I've composed myself, clock in. So I'm there, I'm getting my patients. Like we're having a shift. And I go on and I get my patient assignment, great assignment. We're chilling. This one patient that I got, I don't think we need a name for him. Anywho, he was there for alcohol withdrawal. Beginning stages, but beginning to hallucinate if you haven't worked with or if you're unfamiliar with that. So they start to hallucinate. He was seeing people in the room. He was seeing things crawling on the wall, but like nothing scary, because sometimes they can be really scary and I feel really bad for that. But his were fine. And he was also very trusting of me. Like he was like, hey, I've been through this before. I know I hallucinate. It helps me if you can help reorient me. Anytime you walk in the room, just, I trust you. I know who you are. I was like, sweet. So we're going through the night. Everything's groovy. I'm able to get him off of hallucinations. He'll be like, this is there. And I'm like, and he's like, do you see that? And I'm like, no, like, I don't see that. Or, hey, I have a concern about this. And I would go check. And I'm like, no, like I'm not seeing that. But do you feel safe? Are you okay? He's like, yep, I'm good. I trust you. Again, we're chilling. Several hours into the shift, all of a sudden I'm looking at the monitor, super tacky. He turns on his light, like from his bed or whatever. And I'm like, whoa, that's so strange. So I fly in the room. I'm like, maybe, hallucinations getting to him. I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's agitated. Oh my God. He was so upset with me. And he was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, whoa. I was like, hey, like, what's up? I was like, because, sometimes that happens and no big deal. We roll with it. And so I'm trying to help reorient him. And all of a sudden he goes, Jason's in the corner. Sir? Jason? I'm like, okay. Well, because I didn't think that up at first, but I go, who's Jason? And he goes, that guy that died in here. And goes on. He's like, this is where his spouse was. This is what you did. This is what you guys talked about. This is music that you played for him. This is what he liked to do. And he's in the corner and he wants to talk to you. And I'm so mad that you're not talking to him. So I hightail it out of that room. I'm like, oh my God, he's right. And he knew his name. And I'm like, what room am I in? I was in his room. In his room. So I run out of the room. I'm freaking out. And I'm like, no one's going to believe me. Everybody's going to think I'm crazy, that I've like lost my mind. So I run up to tell my charge. I'm sobbing. She starts kind of getting emotional. And she's been a nurse for 25 years. So she was like, whoa, I've never heard anything like this. Anyway, I go back in the room. And I was like, okay, what does Jason want to tell me? Because I can't see him. And he calmly tells me, again, I just had a panic attack. And the man in the bed that's hallucinating says, Jason's in the room. He's been in here. And he's wanted to talk to you all night. And he wanted to say that he has moved on. And that you need to too. And I hadn't moved on. I hadn't. Obviously. And I just started crying and I just said, okay, and thank you. And he said, no, thank you. And I was like, oh, what did I do? And he said, no, that's what Jason wanted me to tell you. He wanted me to tell you thank you. And oh my God. Since then, I haven't had any panic attacks. I felt so much more confident in the ICU and in my skill. And I carry him with me everywhere. I think about him all the time. And his family, and just how beautiful of a person he was. But I truly learned so much from him. He was an amazing person that I just learned so much about how to be a nurse and how to care for people. in really situations. So, cheers to Jason. But yeah, that's my ghost story. My past patient haunting another patient to tell me that I needed to get my stuff together and move on. So
I lived with ghosts for most of my childhood, and everyone thought I was crazy for it, even to the point of me getting put on medication until other people started to see and experience things for themselves. So it all started when I was about 7 years old and we moved into a new house. And the way things started out were just very subtle things that could easily be explained away by logic. Like I would hear a creaky floorboard or what sounded like subtle laughter or voices, which I, in my head, explained away as being maybe people outside or background noise from somebody else's television. And even though I was trying to explain things away by logic, I always had this uneasy feeling of being watched. And this was a strong enough fear where I slept with the lights on for a very long time. And my parents knew about it, but they too were able to explain away a lot of the things that I would tell them with logic. But slowly over the years, things would escalate. What used to be subtle background noises of laughter and voices became conversations that I could hear inside of my room. What used to be creaky floorboards became footsteps walking around. I would notice that things were not where I would originally place them. My closet doors would open ever so slightly, and there would also be times where my TV would just completely change the channel or shut off. I was scared all the time. If I was home, I was scared. And again, my parents knew what was happening. I would express a lot of concern to them, but they were always trying to explain things away by other causes. And they didn't fully believe what was happening to me. Soon hearing things became seeing things, seeing people. And it was always the same three people. It was a young boy, a young girl, and an older man. It was really the older man's presence who I was truly terrified of, and he was also the person that I saw the most. And the vibe that he kind of gave off was that he was protecting those two children almost from me, even though I wasn't doing anything. And it was just a very weird, uneasy dynamic. And even though I was seeing them and hearing them and experiencing all of these things, I was the only person in my house who was having these experiences, so it was very hard for people to believe me. I kind of felt like my only option at this point was to just continue to live with it. Even though I was experiencing all of these things, there was really nothing that could be done about it because it was only happening to me and nobody really believed that it was actually happening. I was just kind of getting by on sleeping with the lights on or blasting my TV at night so I couldn't hear anything and trying to ignore their existence as much as possible. But then one night I had my most terrifying encounter to date, and the fear that my parents saw in me prompted them to take me to a psychiatrist where I was put on medication. So this is the part of the story where I'm going to tell you guys about the incident that prompted my parents to make an appointment with a psychiatrist where I was put on medications for hallucinations. As I mentioned in part one, what I used to do when I was younger is sleep with my lights on and my TV loud to kind of minimize, I guess, any sort of interactions that I would have with them. I thought by having the lights on and the TV loud, I wouldn't be able to see or hear them. And this kind of felt true to an extent, but even though I wasn't seeing or hearing them, I was definitely still sensing them. So on the night of the incident, I was trying to fall asleep, and as always, I had my lights on and my TV loud, and this might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but I would always sleep towards the corner where I saw the man the most because I didn't want to have him behind me, because the idea of him being behind me where I couldn't see what he was doing made me more scared than being able to actually just stare him directly in the eyes, if that makes sense. There was no guidebook on how to navigate these kinds of situations, so I was just doing the best I could to live with it. So one night I was trying to fall asleep and I could sense somebody come up behind me. Do you know have you ever just been standing in a line and you can feel somebody come stand up behind you? Very similar to that kind of feeling. Okay, and this is where I feel like people are going to be okay, you're a little bit of a kook. But I promise, this is what I felt. So what I felt next was almost like a small animal or a small cat or small person was getting into bed with me. I would feel a slight movement of the bed behind me, which was immediately followed by singing directly into my ear. And it was the voice of a little girl. And I let her hit maybe one note before I ripped the covers off, screamed my head off, and sprinted down the stairs. My dad says he will never forget the look of just sheer terror on my face. And I think this is the moment where he's like, yeah, this is real. However, my mom did still have her doubts, and I think at this point they were just trying to do anything they could to help me. We even had a priest come to like bless our house, which, knowing what I know now, we wouldn't have done that. But at the time, like, it just felt evil and scary. So we were like, let's try to get these evil spirits out of here. But they also made me an appointment with the psychiatrist because of this event. And the psychiatrist eventually put me on to a medication. I cannot say with 100% certainty what the medication was, but I could definitely try to find out. Like I said, this happened when I was like 12 or 13 years old, and I am 30 now. But what ended up happening with the medication is my parents just did not like the way that I was when I was on this medication. I was kind of like a shell of myself, and I did not like being on this medication. So the medication thing was just very short-lived. At this point, I'm still seeing them, and I'm starting to like tell more people. Like, I tell my friends, I tell my cousin, I tell more of my family. Like, people know that this is happening, but I just always get the sense that nobody believes me, so I never really go into detail. Despite knowing that I was like seeing ghosts, my cousin was still very willing to sleep over, and she would sleep over pretty frequently, and I would sleep at her house a lot too. But we were just like attached at the hip, and we were always together. And I absolutely loved when she would sleep over, because in my mind, if she was with me, the ghost would just leave us alone. So when she would sleep over, I would sleep with the lights off. I wish my cousin was here to tell this next part of the story, because I really want you guys to hear it from her point of view. But one night, the ghost just got a little too used to her being there, I guess. She became like an extension of me, and they decided, well, one person in particular decided to reveal themselves to her. The way she describes it is that she woke up in a little bit of a fog, probably around like 3 a.m., and she opened her eyes slightly, and she saw an old man standing over the bed and staring at us. And what's so crazy about this is the fact that when I had told people what was happening to me, I had always just said, like, the ghosts. I had never been specific about like the fact that it was an old man and children. I never described what they looked like, because I felt like people were just like, okay, you're not. But she knew that I was seeing ghosts. She just didn't know what kind of ghost I was seeing. So I had asked her the next morning to describe what this ghost looked like, and she was able to describe in detail the exact same person that I had been seeing, down to the outfit. So while a big part of me was like a little bit freaked out because they were getting more, I guess, ballsy and intense, an even bigger part of me was just so relieved, because I'm like, I'm not crazy. And I don't know what it was, but this event was almost like a snowball effect of like other people now seeing and experiencing the same things that I had been living with for the last 7 years. And it was just so validating.
So where I grew up primarily was like a community with townhomes. So like they all look the same. They're all connected. You get it. And when we moved in, it was a brand new build. So no one else had ever lived there. And I do not remember an ounce of activity prior to this day. So I was probably 11 or 12, and we had a rare moment where I was left home alone. And so I am trying to take a nap on our love seat, but I want to reiterate to you that I was not asleep at all. And so I'm laying on my side, eyes closed, and I roll over onto my back, eyes still closed, and I lay there for probably a few minutes. And then I open my eyes, and this close from my face, okay, is a man staring at me. He did not look like a ghost. He looked very real, like flush in the face. He was a white guy, short dark hair, short dark trim beard, and ice blue eyes. I could pick this man out of a lineup to this day. This happened. I'm almost 32. I was like 12 when this happened. And so I think I'm getting kidnapped because he looks so real. So we are just, I am eyes bugging out of my head. I am so freaked out. I'm blinking. He's not going away. And so I'm like, oh, fate is sealed. I don't even want to see what's about to happen to me right now. So I pull my covers over my head after probably a minute of us making eye contact. And I just wait. Because again, he looked so real. So I wait and I wait and I probably lay there for a couple of minutes and nothing is happening. And I don't hear anything. Like, I don't hear breathing. I don't hear footsteps. I don't hear any kind of movement. And so when I take the blanket back off, he's gone. I run around that house and I check every window and every door, and everything is locked from the inside. Nothing is broken. There is no way that he could have gotten in there, period. But he couldn't have gotten in there without me hearing him, and he couldn't have left without me hearing him. Because I was right next to the door to our backyard. So, like, if somebody's coming in, like, that's definitely how they're coming in. And nothing. I think what was the most odd about that whole thing was the way he was looking at me. It was not this, like, menacing, scary look. It was kind of like a, what are you type of thing. But I was so scared. Because, again, I think I'm getting abducted right now. So that was the only time I ever saw him in that form, as like a full body apparition, if you will. After that, I started seeing shadow people in that house regularly, all of the time. I don't know why. I think I was seeing him as a shadow person because it felt the same. It felt like a male, but it didn't feel like a scary, they want to hurt me. But I was also the only one seeing it, to my knowledge, that I know of. It's kind of odd, the way that they choose you, you know?
5 years ago, my great-grandmother passed away, and I didn't really know her that well, but I did see that it was a tremendous loss for my entire family. It's on my mom's side, and after the funeral, all of us piled into one house to crash and stay the night. Most of us were in this big open room called the bonus room. There were air mattresses, blankets piled up to make pallets, you know, that whole thing. And we all went to sleep after a long funeral day. So imagine me, I'm about 5 years old, I'm sleeping soundly, and I hear something that wakes me up. My eyes open, I look around, and I can hear the radio playing music. But not just any music. It was playing one of those old Southern church stations where the pastor is preaching and there's hymns playing. I look at the radio and there's no one standing near it. I look around and a few others in my family have also woken up and they too are looking at the radio and everybody's kind of disoriented. And someone says, did somebody turn on the radio? And somebody else is like, no, nobody, it just cut on by itself. And it was so weird. But the weirdest part was it was playing the station that my great-grandmother used to listen to. This is not her house, by the way. Then, if that's not crazy enough, we all simultaneously smell roses. My great-grandmother, she wore rosewater perfume. So we could all smell it. We're hearing the radio. We smell her perfume. She's clearly there. She's clearly passing through. The cherry on top of all of this was my aunt waking up from a dead sleep as if like a mummy is coming to life. And she shouts, "Granny?" When I tell you the chill that went down my spine.
My daughter, who was 9 or 10 at the time, would go stay the night at my friend's house with her kids. We stayed right across the street from each other. So her kids would come stay the night at my house and my kids would go stay the night at her house sometimes and hang out. Well, this house, like, it'd always be dimly lit. It would always feel like really heavy. And even so, like, noticeably that I had told her one time, like, girl, it's always heavy in here. It's always dark, you know? But anyways, my daughter was staying the night at my friend's house and they was in her kids' room and they were watching Disney on TV. And my friend had stopped in the hallway and was like, hey, you know, do you want to, I'm fixing to go outside. If you want to come outside and hang out with me, you know, you can. And my daughter was like, yeah. So she looked as my friend left, turned to leave, and she said that she's seen this apparition, and it was this woman with long black hair, like down to her hip, long fingers, long pointy fingers, and it was like pale, and that you couldn't see all the facial features because the hair was like, like covering it all the way down. And she said the thing about this woman, it was so tall that it couldn't reach the roof. Like it was hunched over. That's how tall it was. And she said the thing that really, really creeped her out is because she was so scared that this apparition was going to see her at the time because how she's seen it. And she said, she was looking scared, and that the thing that creeped her out the most is that it didn't look at her, didn't pay her no attention. Like she said, it was so fixated on my best friend, like zoned in,
If you believe in anything spiritual, then I think you should stay for this video. I had this uncle 4 years ago. I hadn't talked to him in over 5 years. Hadn't thought about him, hadn't talked to him, like wasn't close with him. What I saw of him last was he was a bigger guy, white haired, no beard. Okay. Over 5 years goes by. My husband and I were sleeping. I randomly out of nowhere, I had this dream. And I'm out at this house, and my brother and my sister-in-law and I are gonna go get ice cream in the dream. And so I see this dude, this skinny dude with a long beard, just sitting out front. And I was like, that's my Uncle Daryl. And I was like, Uncle Daryl, what are you doing here? And he was like, I just really wanted to come say hi. I was like, oh, well, hi. I was like, I haven't talked to you in forever. Like, you never wanted to talk. And he's like, I know. And I was like, well, Brendan and Mackenzie and I are gonna go get ice cream. Do you want to come with? And he's like, I would actually really love that. And I was like, okay, this is so weird. Like, he's being, like, he was a grumpy dude, but he's being so sweet and so nice. And I was like, okay. And he just looks so different. And so I get in the car, and my brother and sister-in-law start driving off, and I'm like, wait, Uncle Daryl, like, he's back there, he wants to come with us. And they're like, what are you talking about? So next morning, I wake up, I tell my husband, I'm like, this is so weird. I've never thought about him. Why am I having this dream about him? A week later, I get a call in the morning from one of my brothers, and they say Uncle Daryl was found in his house, passed away, and he's probably been unalived for a week now. Are you kidding me? So I truly believe that he had passed away, and that night he visited me in my dreams to, like, let me know that I was no longer on Earth.
Okay, so I literally tried to record this twice, and my audio keeps messing up, but I was 8 years old, and it was my first night spending the night at my childhood best friend's house. Jackie and I got along really well when we started playing softball together, and our moms noticed that they both had a gaggle of children, and four of them seemed to get along really well. My younger brother and her younger brother also played t-ball together. So they were like, let's just exchange kids every now and then. They'll just stay at your house for a weekend, my house for a weekend. It'll be a good time. So I had 4 kids in my family, and she had 5 kids in her family. On this night, me and 2 of my siblings, my brothers, both spent the night at her house. And her mom was real efficient about it. It was a trial run, so she decided to just make a pallet on the floor in the Florida room. And you know me, I drew a picture. So if you're looking at the Florida room from above, right, there's like 2 French doors that lead into the kitchen area. Her parents' room is like over here. And you come in through these French doors because these were blocked by a dresser. And there's like a hockey table, and then you go around, there's a bathroom. There were 2 couches in an L shape, and then like an entertainment center with some lamps and a dresser, and then the pallet in the floor like had all the kids on it. So that's me. I did a little black dot so you can see me pretty easy. I was like in the smack dab in the middle. I think I drew too many kids, but whatever. And then Jackie's to one side of me, and her little sister was on the other side. My brother was over here. My other brother was over there. And if you've watched my videos, you know I have trouble sleeping at night. I just like cannot stay asleep. I don't know why. I have an issue. Hard to fall asleep, hard to stay asleep. I'm used to it. So I woke up at what I would imagine is like 4:15 in the morning, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go back to sleep. And I'm like trying to adjust, trying to fall back asleep. And I'm hearing scratching noises coming from a portion of the wall that's like directly below my feet. So I'm laying here, right? And here's this wall. right about here, something is scratching the wall very deliberately. Like, and it was long scratches. And it started like 2 feet off the ground, and then it would end like right around where the baseboard was, so about 4 inches off the ground. And it sounded like this. It was this like very rhythmic. It was like. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to think rationally about this. I'm not going to freak out. It's probably her dogs. She had 2 dogs that were like medium to large sized dogs. And I'm like, yeah, it's a dog. They went in the room. The French doors are shut. Tough nubs. I might get up and let them in, but I'll think about it while I try to fall back asleep. So I like listen for a little bit, and I'm like, all right, whatever. I lay back down, and I'm like adjusting. I feel something squirm under my back, and I look down, and I see a dog paw. So I look to my left, and I see Peaches is like asleep. And I'm like, okay, they have 2 dogs. It's got to be Bruno. So I look over, and Bruno is asleep by the other French doors. So I'm like, okay, thinking rationally, right? I don't want to freak out yet. I'm like, it's one of her siblings. It has to be. One of her little sisters or her little brother is like trying to scare somebody, and they're just messing with me because it's my first time here. They got to like pick on the new guy, right? So I look over and I see my younger brother, her youngest brother, her youngest sister, her younger sister. I look this way. My best friend Jackie, her younger brother, and my older brother. Okay. All the kids that are in the house are in the room on the pallet. Right. Okay. I'm still trying to think rationally about this. So I'm like, I can tell it's human hands. The only other explanation is that one of her parents, probably her mother, because it doesn't sound like big man hands, her mother probably is sleepwalking. That's like the next place my mind goes to. I'm like, her mother, maybe she has issues that I don't know about. I don't know this woman yet. She just got up and she's like sleepwalking, and she crawled in the kitchen and now she's scratching the wall. Yeah, I'm going to go with that one. So I'm like, okay, her mom has issues. I'm a little scared now, but it's still a human being doing that. So I can accept that. I can try to sleep through that and just pretend it's not happening 4 feet from my little toes. Okay. So after about 10 minutes of hearing this scratching, I'm like, it's just happening. I mean, okay. So I decide I'm just going to ignore it and go to sleep and pray to God her mom does not stand up where I can see her above the dresser in the glass doors that are French doors. And I'm just going to pretend it's not happening. Just business as usual. So I turn over on my side and I kind of like nestle up against my friend because that feels safer than just being sitting meat. And I'm like, I'm just going to sleep through this. And I close my eyes. Almost like the moment that I close my eyes, I feel a hand. I know it was a hand. I felt all the fingers. Grab my shoulder. Hard. Grabbed it. Like pushed me back, grabbed it. And I shot up immediately. And I'm like looking around. I'm like trying to find like who it is because it has to be somebody, right? But I know I did not hear a single thing move. I didn't hear a cover shuffle. All I've heard this whole time is the scratching and little kids breathing around me and like little baby snores. And I look to her sister because that's the only person that's close enough to me to have grabbed me like that. Even though it felt like it came from above. I'm like, maybe she just grabbed me in her sleep or something. And I look at her and she's like literally turned away from me. Like it's not even possible. Like her hand is under her head. It is not possible for her to have grabbed me. I would have loved for it to be possible for her to have grabbed me because then I could like rationalize it in my head that it wasn't a spirit hand from the ether that just came out of nowhere and grabbed my shoulder. I freaked out. I grabbed my friend Jackie. I'm like shaking her. I'm shaking her. I slapped her. I did not want to be alone anymore. She didn't wake up. So I grabbed her little sister. I started shaking her. Like they're the heaviest sleepers I've ever met in my life to this day. I cannot get either one of them up. I'm just like too petrified to grab anyone else in the room or make a noise because I don't know what just happened. And I did not sleep. The rest of the night, I just stayed awake until I saw daylight, and I got like an hour or 30 minutes of sleep. I'm not even sure if I went back to sleep that night, honestly. I don't remember much after that. I just know that scared the bejesus out of me. And I still, to this day, like, I'm still afraid of something grabbing me that I can't see. I still, like, that made my trouble sleeping, like, a lot worse, honestly, like, that experience, like, you know, it is what it is, but it's hard sometimes to sleep. I've had nightmares about it where things will grab me that I can't see. And it scared me. It scared the out of me. Like, I'm not gonna lie. And I don't have a rational explanation for that. And it's okay if you don't believe me. You don't have to believe me. I know what happened. I know what happened.
Don't forget to subscribe and like. And as always, stay safe, stay aware, and question everything.